Welcome back, everybody. Unfortunately, our national security has been in peril ever since Joe Biden took office, and that is due probably in very large part to the crisis at our southern border. And someone who has been very vocal in speaking out against President Biden's radical border policies is Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb, returning to the show. Mark, it's great to see you.
Thank you for having me on, Amanda. Great to see you too.
It's great to see you. I wanted to talk to you about this new UN designation. We have now been crowned, our southern border was crowned the deadliest lane crossing in the world. I find it astounding that the United Nations even recognizes the crisis at our southern border, but our own president and our own border czar, vice president, doesn't seem to see it as such.
Well, that doesn't surprise me one bit. First of all, who cares what the UN has to say? I don't think most Americans care what the UN has to say. But second of all, how bad is the UN act recognize that this is a big problem for us? This is the most dangerous crossing in the world. That just shows you how bad it is. And then the fact that our vice president, our czar, continues to be completely ineffective, absent, clueless, whatever term you want to use, anything but something that's positive towards what should be being done, you can apply, because this is just a disaster and they just continue to make it worse with everything that they do.
Yeah, and Sheriff, I know that you have been so bold in not only your opposition to this administration's policies, but also offering solutions. And I know that, federal policy has definitely let you guys at the border down, but it seems that states are trying to pick up the slack and do what they can. Governor Ducey in Arizona and your state just signed a bill allotting about $500 million to the border. In Texas, $30 million in grants to go to law enforcement at the borders. How big of a boost is that going to be for you and your men and women who are trying to protect our border?
Well, Amanda, that's a huge boost. But I will say this, they shouldn't have to do that as a state. You know why? Because the Constitution requires that the federal government do that job. That's what the taxpayers pay taxes for. But the money's going to the federal government. Instead, they're sending it off to places like Ukraine. And now the states are forced to step up and apply money that Americans already thought they put towards border security. States are having to fill that gap. I'm glad that Governor Ducey and our legislature here signed $500 million. That's going to help tremendously for us to be able to help our partners. And I just wanted to say one more thing. I'm deemed all the time as a rabble rouser, a troublemaker for these guys, when in reality, I'm a good teammate. I don't care. They could show up tomorrow. I would bury the hatchet, and I'd be more than happy to help them achieve their mission, which is to protect this country from unwanted crossers, illegal crossers, and the dangers of dangerous fentanyl, methamphetamines, and every other drug that's coming across.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely devastating. And I think most Americans look at the job that you and Border Patrol agents and law enforcement at the border do, and morale is down. You and I and John and I have talked about this the last few times that you've come on. And I know that a lot of men and women at the border, because their morale is so low, they're leaving their positions and they're going and finding other jobs. And not that technology is ever a one-to-one equal replacement, but sometimes technology can fill in the gaps a little. And I read a recent article about this amazing blimp. It's called the 22-meter Persistence Ground Surveillance System Aerostat, and it's this really high-tech blimp that can surveil the border, pieces of the border. Talk to us about that technology and other technologies that you guys are having to implement to fill in the gaps where the Biden administration has yanked the rug out from under you.
Well, that is great technology, but unfortunately, it's technology that most sheriffs across this country and police departments along the border cannot afford. That is technology that oftentimes is only sold to the government. So it leaves us holding the baton once again. What do we do? What do those sheriff's offices where a sheriff has, 10 deputies along the border and he's fighting this illegal immigration and the drug trafficking every day? What is he supposed to do? We just don't have the funds for that. Now, I'm a little bit bigger county. I'm not right on the border, and I benefit from some of the technology, but I don't have near the technology that's available, and I can't afford it. I would love to have it, but I just want to put a bow on that. This is just another example where sheriffs continue to spill the gap. And hopefully your listeners will come support us at protectamericanow.com. Sheriffs standing up for the rule of law where the federal government is failing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that people will want to go to that website. Give it again.
protectamericanow.com.
I love that. So everybody head there and check it out. I wanted to ask you about these border Mounties, the men who were accused of whipping illegal immigrants. It seems that the Biden administration is trying to save face because it was ruled that they didn't do anything wrong, and yet the Biden administration has been talking about, punitive reaction or punitive action on them. What's your take on it?
Well, my take is they completely turned their backs on these guys. They should have apologized for slamming them in the media like they did, or immediately rebuking their actions, when in reality, they are the ones doing the job. It's the federal government, those people in Washington that aren't doing their job. These men on the horses, they were doing their job. They were wrongfully accused. And now they've come out and said as much. But you know what they say out the side of their mouth? But we're still going to hold them accountable for things. Why? Because they want to appeal to the woke masses who don't understand how difficult of a job that is down on there on the border. And what they're holding them accountable for is things like conduct unbecoming, which is ridiculous. It's a cop-out. They should have had their back. I stand with the guys at Border Patrol. And you know what? If they decide they want to leave there, come on over to Pinal County. We'll take you.
Yeah, I know you will take care of them for sure. But they weren't even whips, were they? They were long reins.
That's all they were. They were reins. Look, this was a hit job by the media and by politicians to undermine the rule of law, to undermine border security. Look, these folks in Washington never even talked about the border. One of the times they did talk about the border was in this instance, and it was so wrong. Honestly, we live in a bizarro world, and I think the majority of the Americans are wise to it. And every day they're catching on more and more that we've been abandoned. And the men and women of Border Patrol have been abandoned by the bureaucrats of Washington.
Yeah, kids in cages, whipping immigrants. How many of these stories and narratives have been debunked? It's unbelievable. Pinal County Sheriff Mark Land, thank you so much for joining us again today. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Amanda.
And coming up after the break, we have John Gibbs. He is a candidate for U.S. Congress in Michigan's 3rd District. He has very important messages for his state and for this country. We're going to talk to him after the break on some of those things that he is running on his platform right after these commercials. Stay with us.